Hi there, I'm Lena Anani, and you're listening to She Wrote a Book, where I interview amazing women from all over the world who also happen to be published authors. I created this show to educate, entertain, and inspire you to be the voice you want to hear in the world. Did you know this episode comes with a free gift? It's a webinar for aspiring authors who want to learn my insider secrets on writing and publishing books. You can access this free training instantly at SheWroteABook.com/bonus. Now let's get started. You are listening to episode number 20 of She Wrote a Book, and today I'm interviewing Sherry Bevan, author of the book, The Confident Mother. Sherry interviewed more than 20 successful mothers and inspirational experts to find the secret to having it all. She discovered it's not about having it all, it's actually having the confidence to live your life the way that works for you. Sherry Bevan works with women to create confidence in their career or in their business. Author, coach, and speaker, she runs The Confident Mother, which is all about celebrating and loving life as a woman and as a mother. Again, her book is called The Confident Mother. You can find the link to purchase her book in our show notes for this episode at SheWroteABook.com/20. Well, Sherry, it's such a pleasure having you as a guest today. I always love to start with this question. Why did you decide to write and publish your book?
Oh, goodness. Wow. The book actually came about from an online conference that I ran in January called The Confident Mother. And I really was looking for the secret to having it all. So I've interviewed some amazingly inspirational mothers. Dame Sarah Story, for example, who is the Paralympian cyclist who bagged loads of medals at London 2012, and Jo Swinson, who's a member of the British government. And I kind of wanted to discover well, actually, what I wanted was for other women to discover that good enough really is good enough. You know, I'd been through a bit of a parenting journey myself, and I wanted more women to enjoy being a mother. So that was the reason I set up the conference. Then somebody else suggested to me, oh, you should turn it into a book. And at first, I have to say, I just laughed at the idea because I thought, oh, a book, that's a crazy idea. But the seed had been sown. And then I happened to bump into a running friend, and I didn't realize at the time, but she was a publisher and an editor, and she was just about to set up her business. And so I asked her, well, what do you think to this idea, Alison? And she loved it, and it kind of came from there, really. So after the conference, I sat down and turned it into a book. It's as simple as that, really. You know, I had the interviews edited. The first part of the book is autobiographical and kind of shares my journey and my philosophy. Then the interviews themselves. And then in the third section, I share kind of practical exercises, worksheets, additional resources for mothers. But that was how it started, from this online conference, which was all about inspiring women, exciting them, moving them. And more than anything, as a coach, I wanted them to take action as a result of that conference and as a result of the book now.
Wow, that's so incredible. I'm really glad that you were able to see that you could totally repurpose your material.
Yes.
And turn it into a book. I mean, that's something that a lot of people don't realize, that if you have this vision to write a book, it can be from content that you've already created from a past training program or a past or blogs, or a series of blogs or something like that. So that's great that you were able to see the opportunity there to turn your knowledge and wisdom and all the resources and connections that you've had and turn that into a really great book. So is your book strictly for mothers to read? Is that?
I guess, it is really aimed at mothers or mothers to be, but it's a lot of different stories about how different women have come through their own mothering challenges. And some of the people I interviewed in the book are experts in certain fields. So I've got a couple of parenting coaches in there, a mother who specializes in helping other mothers to clear away their past and their own personal parenting experiences, if they haven't enjoyed that time when they were parented. A mother that talks about mindfulness. So it is really aimed at mums or mums to be, but anybody really who's experienced moments of self-doubt or loss of confidence or loss of identity. So I've found in the work that I do that there are lots of mothers out there who are struggling and want to have it all, but feeling there must be another way. There's this feeling of overwhelm, and for many mums, they do lose that sense of self after children and becoming so, particularly if you've had a high-powered career like I did myself. And so really, yes, it is aimed at mothers, perhaps more particularly so mums who are either working or running their own business, because that's my own personal experience and my own personal journey.
So why do you think they get to that place? Like mothers, why do you think they get to the place of self-doubt and confusion and hopelessness?
I think as soon as you announce you're pregnant, you have 100 different people willing to tell you how to be a parent, and it just doesn't stop. Society inundates us with information about what we should do as parents, and whether or not how you should feed your child, how you should discipline your child, how you should, whether or not to co-sleep. And I think it's just that sheer volume of information and overwhelm. And I think for a lot of mothers, we do. I mean, I suffered quite severe postnatal depression myself, and I think for a lot of mothers, they lose their sense of identity, because if you've been used to working in a maybe a high flying career, you've maybe been used to being in charge and in control. And when you become a mother, and you're obviously responsive to a baby, responsible for a baby, and it's just a whole different way of being. And I think for a lot of women, they get lost for a while.
How does your book help them find their way back?
My book helps them find their way back through when I work with women, I look at 5 different elements. So work, wellness, contribution, family, and the feminine. And how you balance those is different for every woman, and will change at different stages in your life. So the book is sort of in chronological order, in that it talks about being a mother in the very early days and how to be with your child, but then it takes you through a journey and explores, as your children are getting a bit older, and then as they become a teenager. So it explores all those different things, but I think what women really get from it is the material and the learnings from the speakers themselves. So for me, for example, one of the real light bulb moments for me when I was interviewing Toni Brodell, who's the director of the Pay It Forward Foundation. She asks her clients, when you were younger, whose love did you crave the most? And in order to experience that love, what did you have to do, and who did you have to be? And for me, that was a real turning point, because I'd always thought that working hard, being clever, being successful, not making mistakes, being perfect, that was what I needed to do in order to be loved. But I hadn't realized it until that interview with Toni, and it just changed my whole way of thinking, that I have to. I mean, I continue to work hard because I am that kind of type A, smart, ambitious career woman, and always was. I want my business to be successful, but I realized that the working hard isn't essential to love what you do. And I think for lots of women, the interviews give you those insights into yourself, self-discovery, finding the secrets to being the confident mother. So thinking about how you can look after yourself as much as look after your children.
Wow. So who in your life has influenced you as a mother? And especially who influenced the information that you share in your book?
Oh gosh, well, actually, my influence as a mother is the mummy wolf. He's my biggest influence. And let me just explain that a bit more. So I was always a nature girl. I mean, I live in London, and I worked in the city. And I was very much a city girl, in that I loved working in the city, and I loved feeling sophisticated and going to work in a suit. But I loved being out in nature, and I loved animals. I'd always loved being in the woods. When I was young, my house backed onto the woods, so I was out there every day. So when I became a mother, it was nature that I turned to for inspiration. And I love wolves. I think they're beautiful creatures. And for me, I really wanted to be a mum the way that a female wolf is a mum. So in wolf society, the pack has one dominant male and one dominant female, and it might have been that appealed to me, the one dominant female idea. But she's the one who is allowed to have puppies, and she looks after them and nurtures them. But what I like about the wolf is she doesn't need books to know what to do. She really does trust in her instincts and what she's learned from her own parents. So she's very gentle with her pups, but yet also fiercely protective. And she knows that feeding is something enjoyable, it's essential, sleeping together makes sense to keep her babies safe and warm. And that really does fit with my own philosophy. So I wouldn't say that's been one person has influenced me as a mother, but it's really trying to remember that you can trust in your own instincts. So if I'm not sure about how to handle a situation, I mean, my girls are a bit older now, they're 13 and 10, but I always think back, what would that mummy wolf do? What would her instincts tell her to do? So what are my instincts telling me to do? And I think one of the things I see in our society, we've already talked about the information overload, but many of us can no longer hear our instincts telling us what to do, and we we get covered in this thick fog or a blanket, and we just don't trust in our instincts enough. And I think that's the one thing I really want to bring out of the book, is that if it feels right to cuddle your baby, then it probably is right to cuddle your baby.
I'm getting goosebumps just listening to you. I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. I mean, so I recently found out one of my friends is pregnant and with her first child, and it's kind of exciting news. And of course, like, I've never had a kid, but I was like, oh, this is what you have to do. You need to take these, you need to do that, blah blah blah. And now I'm listening to you. I'm like, yeah, I really had no place to say anything. Like, I mean, I love how simply you put it. It all comes down to the fact it's just, if you feel like this is what you should do, then that's probably what you should do.
Yes.
And that's amazing. And I love how the title of your book, The Confident Mother, syncs up perfectly with the mummy wolf. I think that was the way you described the mother wolf was just exactly what she is. She's a confident mother. She's
Yes.
dominant. She knows exactly what to do, and she's very protective. And I think that's so inspiring too, to reach out to nature and animals for inspiration on how to be a mother, or how to be a better mother, I guess. So that's really cool. I'm really glad we talked about this. This is great. So so tell me a little bit about your journey to motherhood. What was that like, especially when with your first child? How did
Well,
that?
yeah. So I mean, I already mentioned I had quite severe postnatal depression, but I had children quite late in life. So I was 38 when I had my first child. Well, no, 38 when I got pregnant. And I'd been working, typical smart career woman. I was working for a senior manager for a law firm based in Chicago, actually. So at the time, I was commuting quite often between London and Chicago, but I worked hard and I played hard. And then my life changed for me kind of almost overnight. My nan died, and I had been really, really close to my nan, and she'd always told me, and perhaps she shouldn't have done this, was probably not politically correct behavior from a nan, but she'd always told me I was her favorite granddaughter. But she was a big influence on me. She was not your typical grandmother. She was an eccentric artist who would have been happy living in a garret. She wore high heels, very trendy clothes, and I was very, very close to her. We wrote long letters to each other, and I really loved my nan. So when she died, we went to her funeral, obviously, and I was standing there at the graveside, and it was a typical London morning in February. It's damp and it's grey and it's all a bit drizzly. And I suddenly realised that, oh God, she's never going to see her grandchildren. And I honestly hadn't thought about children up until that point, and that was it. It was a decision made in that moment. I want to have children. So I told my husband the good news, and I got pregnant really quickly, which I wasn't really expecting it to happen quite so fast. But I had quite a traumatic birth experience. Things didn't go very well in labour, and I was fine afterwards, and my daughter was fine as well. But I got very, very ill with quite severe postnatal depression, and was sick with that for, well, about 2 years in total. I went back to work after 6 months. We get more maternity leave here in the UK than you do in the States. And, at work I was coping well. I got promoted while I was on maternity leave. But I think my personal confidence and my own self-esteem were broken and shattered. And it took me a long time to recover. And then I had my second daughter. I was 41 when I had my second daughter. So quite old, I suppose, for a to have children in the first place. And again, I had postnatal depression, not quite so badly, but it really did make me realize that I'd come from being this very strong, very confident, very ambitious woman to being somebody who had lost her identity and lost her confidence, and I still had this thing about needing to work hard and needing to be perfect and not make mistakes and trying to have it all. And I guess eventually I realized you can't have it all, but it's about having that confidence to live your life the way that works for you.
Yeah, it is. Wow. Incredible story, incredible journey. And I'm glad that your journey led you to writing a book about and helping other women work through the similar issues. What do you love most about being an author?
What do I love most? Well, I love being able to share my philosophy of listening to your instincts, and I love knowing that my book has made a difference to other mothers. Mums often write to me and tell me that they've been inspired by something in the book. Or one mum the other day told me she was riding in the New Forest where wild ponies roam free, and as they were riding past, the foals all ran up to their mum and nursed. And she said she thought of me at that moment because it brought home to her about this listening to your instincts and being with your children or being with your babies. So for me, I suppose what I love most about being an author is that more women are finding that confidence to do what they want to do and to be the mother in the way that works for them.
Indeed. Awesome. Sherry, thank you so much for being our special guest today. We will have a link to your book in the show notes for this episode, and our listeners can find that at SheWroteABook.com/20 to learn more about our author and her very confident book. So thank you, Sherry, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you for listening to She Wrote a Book. If you enjoyed this episode, then subscribe now so you can automatically get access to all new episodes, and feel free to share your inspired thoughts with us in the comments too. I'd love to hear from you. Are you ready to write your own book? Get started now with my quick and concise webinars so you can learn my insider secrets on writing and publishing your own book. Claim your free gift now at SheWroteABook.com/bonus. Until then, may you always feel good and make magic.
Feel good, make magic now. Lena, Anani will show you how. Ignite that wisdom inside of you and show the world what you do. To publish, write, and promote. Learn the best way to go. OMG, do it now. Lena, Anani will show you